Christian Toto is an award-winning journalist, a book author, a movie critic, and editor of HollywoodInToto.com. He previously served as associate editor with Breitbart News, Big Hollywood. Follow him at Hollywood in Toto, at Hollywood in Toto. Now, his book, Christian's book, Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. Well, James spotted this one on Twitter and got very excited, quite rightly so. It's a must-read expose of the craziness, and in fact, there's a neat line in it, paraphrasing Sylvester Stallone, which says, if wokeism is a disease, Christian Toto is going to be part of the cure. Let's hope so. Christian, welcome to Outsiders. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Now, listen, you yourself spent some time as a scriptwriter. You tell in your book a great story about how you were there presenting an amazing pitch for a film script, and they said, oh, can't we make the American Army the bad guys instead of whoever you had as the bad guys? Tell us that yarn, but also tell us how you then got into basically exposing the wokeness of Hollywood.
Well, that's actually the person who wrote the foreword to my book, Andrew Klavan. He is a screenwriter and a novelist, and he told this behind-the-scenes story that really captures what's going on in Hollywood today. And, this is what I cover on a day-to-day basis. But, it's one thing to hear about a crazy story here, an actress virtue signaling there. The book does is puts it all together. And once you put it all together, it's even more frightening, really, and scary and silly at times, but obviously the stakes are pretty profound.
And how did wokeness really get a grip in Hollywood, I guess, and how are we seeing it manifested?
Hollywood is a left-of-center institution for sure, and wokeism is sort of intersecting with the left, so I think it's a natural outgrowth of that. And I think one of the big things a few years ago was the Ghostbusters reboot. They went from 4 gentlemen to 4 ladies. Everyone went crazy. It became a culture war. And I think what you saw is people saying, well, you must like that movie, and if you don't like it, you're a misogynist. It was one of the kind of the key moments where it kind of showed this woke culture really taking hold.
Well, it was a bloody awful film, so if you like it, there's something deeply, deeply wrong with you. But you would think Hollywood would at least be aware of the McCarthyism that we saw, and they've created a whole new McCarthyism now where if you dare express a view that is against this leftist orthodoxy, that could be the end of your career.
It is amazing. As a matter of fact, there's a movie coming out later this year about the McCarthy era. The recent Being the Ricardos, a new film with Nicole Kidman, starts about the McCarthy era and how she was going to be banned. The lack of awareness here is off the charts. And I wish somebody in Hollywood would read my book, even if they don't like it, even if they disagree, just be aware of what's going on. It's happening again. Not exactly, but there's way too many similarities to really kind of shake us up.
James.
But Hollywood, Christian, at the heart, is a business. It exists to make movies that people want to see and sell tickets. So what is happening? Because as Rita said, films like that Ghostbusters remake was an absolute flop. How has identity politics come in over the top of the bottom line?
It is fascinating. It's show business, but I've been saying lately, it's show business with an asterisk, because they are willing to lose money at times to push an agenda, to forward a message. It's really amazing. And it's happening again and again. There's a phrase being used, get woke, go broke. And you see a lot of sequels and reboots and TV shows that go in this direction and then fail. It's not just 1 or 2. There's a whole dozens of them. But for right now, Hollywood is making enough money here where they could swallow the losses there. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make fiscal sense for sure.
Rita.
And they have annoyed a great portion of the population. You see the audience for things like the Oscars and the Golden Globes, they've absolutely plummeted because people don't want to hear these Hollywood stars lecturing to them about global warming or the treatment of women or how evil Donald Trump is. Do you see any sort of a correction here at some point where someone comes in and says, there's a whole massive market that we're not really servicing? There's people who are hostile to us because they know we hate them.
It's a great point. I think I could just visualize an entire table full of money that's being left alone, that's waiting for someone to kind of jump in and say, that's my money. Make a story, make a TV show that really speaks to the people that are being alienated. It doesn't seem like a hard thing. It's a no-brainer, but not happening yet, at least on a full scale.
So, Christian, the guy who wrote your foreword there, sorry, I thought it was you. The story there is really important because you have creative people who write and look to places like Hollywood to build a career through their creativity. But are you seeing them being cancelled, alienated, unless they virtually present a preordained script?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues here with woke is that it basically short circuits the creative process. You want to tell a story, you want to tell a joke, you want to share something, your vision, what you think is really important or just entertaining. And then the woke kind of gets in the way, it stops it. And it's an issue, And of course, if it just happened in Hollywood, we can laugh it off, but it bleeds into the culture at large. We've seen that just the last 2 years, of course.
James?
So I was going to say, tell us then, how does this work, for example, like in, say, the casting process? I mean, identity politics, how does that wind up infiltrating the casting process? And then what does that wind up doing to the quality of talent on screen and ultimately what we see on our screens?
Well, there's this diversity mandate. Listen, diversity is a good thing. I think Hollywood has done a terrible job in the past of being diverse, of letting everyone into the party, everyone have a voice. But this is an overcorrection now. And I've spoken to a straight male comedian, and he basically says, when I go look for jobs, when I talk to my agent, my rep, they say, I got nothing. What can I do? They don't want you. They don't want your skin color. So, this is a funny fellow, and he would be an asset to any sort of production, a movie, a TV show, anything. And he's being pushed aside. It doesn't mean that someone who's a person of color isn't talented and funny and all those things, but you want to embrace the best. It should be the funniest. It should be the smartest. And that should be anyone of any background. But that's not happening. So, I think the woke itself is really kind of crushing art at times, and you're not getting the best of the best.
Rita?
Is the woke a mask for just how rotten the culture is in Hollywood? I mean, we saw with the Me Too just the fact that they all knew there were these predators amongst them and they all turned a blind eye or played along. I mean, this is a really poisonous little corner of the world. Is this a mask to say, look how virtuous and good we are, don't look too closely at what's actually happening behind the scenes?
I completely agree. And the Me Too movement, when it started in Hollywood, was actually a good thing. We need to kind of put these predators out and arrest them and make them held accountable. But then when there were certain figures that were aligned with the Hollywood community that were doing bad things or allegedly did bad things, they all went whisper quiet. So even that movement, which could have been a good thing that blossomed out of Hollywood, went south right away. But yeah, it is virtue signaling because all these stars will kiss up to China, and China is doing, what they're doing with human rights abuses, with censorship. They won't say a peep about that because it'll hurt their bottom line. So if you're going to be strong and brave and bold, you got to follow through. When they don't, it's just virtue signaling.
Christian Toto, so good to talk to you. HollywoodandToto.com. People can read your blog there, and you're exposing all of woke Hollywood. Keep up the great work, and we might chat to you again about some films in specific in a few months' time. Thanks so much, Christian Toto.
Love that.
Thank you very much.